Now, in today's webinar, we will talk about a culture of coaching and how it can impact an organization's performance, how this will also allow you to attract new talent, retain employees, and improve the customer's experience. Now, if you are a manager who wants to add coaching to your skill set and lead your team to greater success, seize the opportunity, and to find out more about starting or having coaching conversation, this webinar is just for you today. Now, let me introduce our presenter today. Her name is Marielle Gauthier. I hope I'm pronouncing your name, Marielle. Sorry if it's mispronounced. Marielle is the owner and principal of Redworks Communications and Coaching. As a seasoned accredited business communication specialist with over 20 years of experience, Marielle has extensive experience in strategic communications planning, public relations, media relations, and coaching, facilitating, and training. Now, as a certified results coach, Marielle works with leaders of small and medium-sized organizations to help them make improvements in individual and team performance, realize better outcomes, and to achieve their business goals faster. Marielle is also the co-founder and president of the Saskatoon Fiddle Orchestra. So you do know what she likes to do in her spare time. Now, thank you so much. And I'll just hand over to Marielle. Marielle, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tamika. Yes, okay, so now I'm just going to share my screen here. There. Tamika, what are you seeing? Are you seeing learning objectives?
Awesome, yes.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here to talk to you about coaching and increasing your skills with coaching. So thank you so much for attending. I just wrote some of the places where you're from. So it's very exciting. We have a great mix of hotels and cities as well. And also Rebellion is here. The Gulf Harbor Golf Club. So this is great mix. So welcome everybody. So I'm going to be talking today about, of course, how to build a winning team in hospitality, the power of coaching. And the learning objectives for today's presentations are really to think about what is coaching and what it is not, what is not coaching. We'll be talking about, the importance of having a coaching culture. And also we'll spend a bulk of our time around really exploring 4 elements for a successful coach approach. So thank you so much for introducing yourselves. What I would like to find out is do you currently coach your employees? If you could just put a thumbs up, yes or no, in the chat. So in the chat, that would be great. So do you currently coach your employees? Yes or no, thumbs up, thumbs down, that'd be great. So we have 1 thumbs up. So we have a yes. I just kind of want to gauge the audience here to see how many of you do coaching. Okay. So we have a few. Awesome. Okay, thank you. So you should have received a very short handout. So I will ask you to have it ready. And I want you to think, the first question I have for you is, what does coaching mean to you? And to help you think about what that means, just think about when you've been coached or you're coaching. What were those experiences like for you? And what do you think a great coach sounds and acts like? And how should coaching make you or make somebody feel? So I'll give you a minute to do that. And then I would like you to write that answer, transcribe your answer into chat. I'll give you 1 minute to just share with us what coaching means to you. So I'll give you a minute to do that. So it can be one word, it can be a short sentence, no worries about length. And when you're done, put that in chat so we can have a look. So we have feedback in real time, helping others learn. Great. Casual conversation to provide more feedback or ideas. Making team members feel welcome, prepared to succeed, mentoring. Using respectful communication to help others learn, motivating positive reinforcement, training, providing guidance, role model, mentorship, encouragement, training style. Yeah, okay. These are great, thank you so much. One of my next slides, a lot of you will go, I'm out of here. She doesn't know what the heck she's talking about, delete. So hang in there, don't leave quite yet. So coaching is defined as a process. It's a process that enables individuals through a process of self-discovery and self-awareness to build their capabilities and their capacity to achieve their goals, whether that be personal, whether that be professional or organizational. Okay, so it's a process. And I'll be talking about, well, what does that process look like in a few minutes here. Okay, so if you want, you can take down notes in your handout. So this is the definition that I use. Okay, it's really helping somebody get from point A to point B. Okay, and helping them close the gap with where they are today and where they want to be. So what between where they are today and the goals that they want to achieve. Okay, so a small C or informal coaching, it really, the focus there is on facilitating insight. You're bringing the coachee or your employee that you're coaching to their own conclusions. And you're doing this in a very, a very specific way to do that. Okay, so that's what coaching is. Coaching, and also just wanted to share a quote from John Whitmore. John Whitmore is actually one of the co-founders or co-creators rather of the GROW model. And if we have time, I'll just share very, very quick framework approach of coaching. So he has said that coaching is unlocking people's potential to maximize their own performance. And it is more often helping them to learn rather than teaching them. So we've all heard the adage of, don't give, if somebody doesn't know how to fish, just don't give them fish, help them learn how to fish. But in this instance, it's really helping them learn how to fish on their own, okay, and just coaching them through that. So coaching is not, so this is where some of you are going to go, well, wait a minute. So coaching is not therapy, right? Coaching is not therapy because you're not fixing anybody. You're not delving into their traumatic past. Coaching is right now and where they want to go, okay? Where you are today and where you want to go. Coaching is not the same thing as management. Coaching is one tool that a manager can use, but it's not the only tool. Because sometimes a manager needs to be direct, they need to tell, they need to mentor or teach. But coaching is a powerful skill to learn. Coaching is not consulting. The primary focus is not to analyze or to see what's wrong and to make recommendations on how to fix anything. Okay, that's consulting, but that's not coaching. Coaching is also not training or teaching. Again, those are tools that managers use. Training and teaching, these things focus on sharing knowledge and best practices. And it also helps people develop and hone skills, but it's not coaching. And coaching is not mentoring. Mentors are typically seasoned professionals within an organization who show less senior and experienced people the ropes. Mentors are great at pointing out how things work in an organization, along with some of the hidden things for them to know so that they can get things done and to be successful. They can also make great introductions to others, and the best mentors typically coach. Okay. And then lastly, coaching is not progressive discipline. I've had people call me and say, I'm having trouble with an employee and I want you to coach them. Well, that doesn't work very well. So progressive discipline, that's a specific process of working with employees who are not performing well for whatever reason. So that's not coaching. Okay, there may be parts in that you could use coaching, but that's not what the reason for coaching, because coaching is an investment in the talent the organization wants to develop and to retain. Okay, so I want to share some research with you now. This was done by Human Capital Institute and the International Coaching Federation, of which I have a certification with. And they did a study last fall, and it's called Defining New Coaching Cultures. And they found that the investment in preparing leaders to coach represents one of the more significant post-pandemic talent preparedness initiatives that an organization can do. So the study found that there was strong agreement that coaching leads to, so this is all about building that coaching culture, okay? And they found agreement, and even strong agreement, that coaching leads to enhanced leadership development. So you can see the percentages there. 54% of respondents agree, 19% strongly agree. There is increased engagement with coaching, again, pretty high. 51% of respondents agree, 18% strongly agree. And then coaching leads to increased commitment. 50% agree and 16% strongly agree. And for your own information, this was based on 470 participants, including professionals from HR, so human resources, learning and development, and then talent management fields. And one more stat that I want to share is that organizations continue to use a mix of three different coaching practices, okay? So they found that participants, respondents surveyed, 85% of them work with managers and leaders who use coaching skills. 64% of respondents use external coaches, and then internal coaches are used by about half of the respondents. Excuse me. I'm just going to clear my voice here. One moment, please. Okay, so that just goes to show that organizations are using a mix of these three coaching practices. So they really want their managers and their leaders to start using coaching as a skill in order to get people, or have people rather, be successful in their role and to reach their professional and the organizational goals faster. And they're also using a mix of external as well as internal coaches. All right, so now let's talk about the benefits of cultivating a coaching culture. So I want you to think about, what do you think are the benefits of coaching for the organization, the manager as a coach or as coach, and then the employee? I'm going to give you 30 seconds to put into chat what might be some benefits that you've seen if some of you are coaching. So benefits you've seen for either the organization, the manager, and the employee, or that you think there would be benefits for. I'll give you 30 seconds for that. And then put it in, please put that in the chat, please. What do you think are the benefits of coaching for the organization, the manager, and the employee? So with higher employee engagement, able to meet goals, increased immersion into the culture. Anything else? I'll give you another 15 seconds to put in an answer. Okay, so let's take a look at what are the benefits. of cultivating a coaching culture. And that means from A to Z. That means that it's part of the hiring process. It's part of the expectations for the manager. It's part of the employee performance. It is integrated into the fabric of that organization. Okay, so let's take a look. So for the organization, and you have a little bit of room on page 2 if you wish to take any notes, it's that for the organization, there's higher productivity, right? Because people are more efficient. They're able to focus on firstly identifying what their objectives and goals are, and then an action plan to reach that. There's going to be greater employee engagement because people are much happier and more productive when they are being supported and encouraged to do their work. There's going to be increased retention. And something I didn't write down, but you're also going to have you're going to be attracting other really high candidates as well, some strong stars into your organization, because people want to know that there is coaching available for them. Team performance increases as well as the quality of relationships, because you're going to have better relationships when you offer coaching. And then, of course, from an organizational perspective, if you offer leaders this kind of development, that is a really good thing in order to keep some strong leaders in your organization. For the manager, another long list of benefits as well. There's more of a collaborative approach. There's going to be better employee relationships. There's better and more increased accountability as well. Greater creativity, because you're not bound by this is how we've always done it, but you're allowing individuals to be creative and to come up with their own thoughts as well. For the manager, it's rewarding. It's rewarding to see their employees increase their skills and achieve success as well. And also it helps with their career potential, because coaching is a great skill to add. We just saw that in the research that it's really important to add that from a post-pandemic potential. And then lastly, for the employee, again, a lot of benefits for the employee. They get to grow their skills. They become better problem solvers because they're allowed to solve their own problems. Not left dangling, if they really don't have an answer, but they are given a time to think about what their issues are and how can I problem solve this issue. They also have become better decision makers as well. And all that will boost and improve their confidence. They'll be more motivated, they'll feel respected as well, and they'll have higher job satisfaction. So there's a lot of benefits to cultivating a coaching culture. And then having said all that, it's important to recognize that coaching is not easy. It takes time and effort to learn when, how to coach your employees. And even then, coaching comes with its own challenges. So because coaching is led by the employee, because it's a coaching conversation that's led by the coachee, it might see the employee tackle challenges and problems, but they may get frustrated. And there may also be some fear of failure. And both of these can be barriers to the employee's growth and learning. Also, as a manager, if you're used to only having feedback conversations or using a particular kind of people management style, well, it can be hard to let go of control and to let your employees do their own thinking and problem solving. All right. And coaching is a conversation that takes time and personal investment from both you and your employees. And other practices such as feedback, formal training, they can seem like quicker and easier options, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best option for that particular situation. And then lastly, depending on, you may be in a fully virtual or hybrid environment, and that can add its own challenges as well because of digital communication. For some employees, they may have a harder time connecting digitally, or even if others are perfectly comfortable. So there are challenges. So and that's not a bad thing. It's just being cognizant and being aware of the challenges. So now let's start thinking about the coach approach. And I want to talk a little bit about what you need to do in order to bring that in successfully into your organization. So what do you think? What do you think a coach approach means? How would you define that? So I'll give you a minute, and then um, when you when you have an answer, please drop it into the chat. So I'll give you a minute to think about what a coach approach means. Thank you. That's no problem at all. I got nothing. That's fine. I thought that this might be a kind of a redundant question. I hear it all the time, so I'm thinking, geez, maybe everybody else has too. So thank you that I'm not kind of just being redundant here. Thank you very much. Thank you as well. Okay, so that's perfectly fine. Let me just turn off my alarm here. All right, so the coach approach. What is that? Well, basically, it means that it's an organization that is adopting coaching principles and techniques in all kinds of various contexts and situations. Okay, so it means that it can be applied by anyone. So not every manager is a good coach, and not everyone who's in a management position, they can also be a good coach, right? So it can be applied by anyone seeking to support others. I know lots of people in non-formal positions that are great at this. They do this naturally with their colleagues and their coworkers. So it can be applied by anyone seeking to support others in achieving their goals and maximizing their potential, but also getting them to think creatively as well. And it can be used for individuals, it can be used for teams. And what a coach approach does is that it promotes an organization that has an open, collaborative, supportive, and empowering environment where people feel valued, they feel understood, and motivated to take ownership of their own development. It's not just, well, what's the organization going to do for me? Is how can the organization support me to do what I need to do for myself? Okay. So, and coaching, as I mentioned earlier, it's an essential management skill, I believe, for managers to really get the best out of not only out of themselves, but also out of their team as well. Okay, so that's the coach approach, or an overall coach approach. So if we think about, well, what does it mean for the manager and leader using those coaching skills? Well, it's what it is. It's a leadership approach where managers adopt coaching techniques in order to support performance and development of team members. So that's the whole crux of coaching, is that you, as a manager, you are coaching them to perform better, more efficiently, more effectively, and also to develop their skills. Okay, that's what the foundation of coaching is. And how do you do that? It's through ongoing conversations where you, as the manager, is using coaching skills to ask questions, to help guide that conversation, to help them employees to encourage self-reflection in order to help them form their own decisions and solutions rather than giving them the answers. And when I was preparing this slide, I thought about one of my managers. He was a lovely man, absolutely. I got along well with him, but he couldn't help himself. As a senior I used to work at the health region, and as a senior communicator, I've been around the block a bit. I knew how to write. And he would constantly tell me what to say and how to say it. And that was not at all a coaching conversation, right? So coaching is all about helping others self-reflect on their problems, on the issues at hand, rather. And what a manager, leader using coaching skill, what this does is that it fosters a culture of continuous learning, accountability, and collaboration with the team. So as you're using coaching, everybody is learning, constantly learning. And then finally, it's empowering. It empowers individuals to think critically and to think creatively. I want a team that can do that. I want employees, because when I'm not there at the office, I don't want them to be paralyzed because they don't know how to think critically think or to be creative just because I'm not there. I want to be able to develop people's skills in order to do that. So just another quote from John Whitmore. Again, he was the co-creator of the GROW model. And he says, the coach is not a problem solver, a teacher, an advisor, or instructor, or even an expert. They are a sounding board, a facilitator who raises awareness, people's awareness, and their responsibility to to develop, but also to achieve their goals. So let's get into the elements that are required to become to have a successful coach approach. And this was tough for me to narrow this down because there's so many things, but I'm thinking that these are really the foundation of that coach approach. So there are 4 things, okay, and these are all listed on page 3 in your handout. So the 4 main buckets or categories are adopting coaching behaviors. 2, recognize coachable moments. 3 is adapting the coaching for each individual and situation. And then 4 is an action plan. Okay, so I'm going to go through each one of these. So let's take a look at the first one, the adopt coaching behaviors. So what do you think? I'm going to give you all 30 seconds. What do you think are some good coaching behaviors to adopt for somebody to become a good coach? What's a couple? Put them in, think about that and put them in the chat. Have expectations. To listen, absolutely. Being respectful, understanding. Yes, good listening, patience. Absolutely, those are all important. Always watching for what people are doing well and encouraging this as opposed to what they're not doing well, right? Being empathetic. Yes, absolutely. So those are great. So let me go through some other behaviors as well. The first one is developing a coaching mindset. Well, what does that mean, a coaching mindset? So it means that you need to believe in the value and potential of coaching conversations, to know that they're, just because they take more time, they're not worth it. No, they are super worth it, super worth it. A manager using coaching needs to be curious, needs to be compassionate and confident in your employees' motivations and in their abilities. You need to believe that your employees want to and can reach their performance and development goals. Okay. Manager also needs to believe they have that the coachees have a unique and valuable perspective on their own challenges and possible solutions. And part of that coaching mindset is that you want to empower and motivate, like many of you have said here in the chat. And also, and this might be tough for some managers, that you accept that you don't have all the answers, or maybe you don't even know what is the best course of action for that person. Okay, I'm not talking about for an organizational project, but definitely that person may have really good ideas as to, hey, how do we go forward here? Okay. And one last thing I want to talk about regarding a mindset is that you accept that even if you're an expert in the field, and many of you are, and that you have a lot of the answers, that you hold back to let that person being coached express their own thoughts and express concerns and challenges and feelings. So that's a coaching mindset. There's lots of work to be done around that coaching mindset. Another coaching behavior is to build and foster trusting relationships. And then, because trust is the foundation of any relationships, right? Because once you do that, it's going to be easier for you to ask those deep questions and for the employee to feel safe to answer those questions. So you have to think about, it's all about relationship building, right? That's the cornerstone of everything, but definitely a cornerstone of coaching. Because without that trusting relationship between you and your employees, it's going to be difficult to have the conversations and to provide the support that coaching enables. So what might be some trust building behaviors that come to mind that are important to have? So in chat, what would be some key trust building behaviors that you can use to nurture that positive relationship with employees? I'll give you 30 seconds for that. What are some key trust building relationships or behaviors to nurture that positive relationship? So we have being present, consistency. Anything else that comes to mind? Listening, yes. Expressing care, very, very important. Yeah, those are all great ways. So let me share a few others. So the first one, really, really important, is creating a safe space. Because your goal as a people manager is to create an environment of psychological safety for each one of your employees. Because coaching requires a level of vulnerability from everyone involved. And as the manager, you need to be willing to open up and talk about your own failures, your own successes and lessons learned. You need to share stories because the employee will also need to open up about their own challenges, their own struggles and experiences for coaching to be successful. Okay, so that psychological safety and that vulnerability is so important. Another thing that you can do is to, remember, you're building trust, not just in that coaching, but within that relationship, is that you want to involve them whenever you can, involve your employees in decision making, because that will let employees know that you value their input and that their point of view is important to you. So when possible, ask your employees to weigh in on the decision, ask for their feedback, because that they have, in order that shows that you care about their insights. And this doesn't mean that you have to share every decision or that you can put all of their suggestions into practice. That's not possible, right? But rather when and where you can, get their input and maybe even use their suggestions if it works. Another thing you can do is to learn about others. Be genuinely interested in their challenges and their priorities, and just so that you show an interest and then you care about them. Another important factor, very important, near and dear to my heart, is communication. Communicate with your employees about the things that impact their role, their goals, the process, the organization. Because when employees know you'll keep them in the loop, they'll be more likely to share information with you as well. And it's always safer to over communicate than to under communicate. Okay. Another point to build and foster trust is around showing that you're invested in their success. Celebrate their wins, recognize when people go above and beyond, and notice their accomplishments, even when they aren't necessarily work related or related to what your team does. Just a few more here. Being honest and direct with your employees, and to be clear that you expect the same from them. I mean, this seems basic, but there are times when it might feel easier to avoid telling them something or to dance around an issue, right? You don't want to have those crucial conversations, but show your employees that you'll be open with them even when it is difficult. And then another one is taking accountability. Ensure you take action on any commitments you've made, and ensure the employee is clear on the tasks required to achieve their desired outcomes. And then finally, embrace failure. It's easy to feel supported when you're doing a good job, but sometimes the real test of a manager-employee relationship is when the employee experiences failure or struggles. And when they make a mistake or fail, or they'll fail at a task, remind them that failure is an opportunity to learn, and that you're there to support them as they recover, as they make mid-course corrections, or that as they're trying again. And remember also that it builds resilience. And I would say even being part of that, being vulnerable, is try sharing a time that you experienced something similar and talk about how you handled that particular failure or mistake. What did you learn? because seeing your human side, being vulnerable, and knowing that failure happens to the best of us, that will be reassuring, and they'll be more confident in sharing with you as well. Okay, so that's building and fostering trust. The next one is listening actively. Some of you mentioned listening actively. I don't want to go too deep into this. You've probably taken a lot of courses around listening actively, but just to bring this to top of mind, you want to give people your undivided attention, right? You can't be on the phone and on your computer and also talking with them at the same time. Doesn't work. You also want to truly listen to what is being instead, and instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, what am I going to say next? Or what's my next question? Because then if you're doing that, you're not listening. It's a different part of the brain. And of course, there's verbal cues for listening, right? Showing that you're listening, you're nodding, you're saying, go on, tell me more. You're asking for more information or clarification. You're confirming, paraphrasing, summarizing. Another important thing when you're coaching is use their words, their specific words, as well, as opposed to a word that you would use. And with permission, always with permission, share observations, perhaps to help spark new ideas. And then part of listening actively are the non-verbal cues for listening. Be aware of your body language, being aware of their body language. You always want to have good, positive, open body language, regardless whether you're standing, walking, or sitting. Face that person, make eye contact, nod. And something important as well is keeping your facial expressions neutral, especially when they may be disclosing something surprising, unsettling, or concerning. And that's certainly a skill I've had to learn as a coach, because seriously, coaching is so vulnerable for the coachee that they are really opening up their heart. And I've had a few moments of, in my head, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is huge. And I've got to remain, that the face has got to remain neutral. Another thing to keep in mind as you're listening actively is create a space using silence. Silence does feel uncomfortable, but it offers that opportunity for the person to think, because you need that quiet, that silence in order to gain insight. So give them 30 seconds, even give them a minute. Because remember, you're helping employees come to their own conclusions, and silence is needed to have those insights. And another coaching behavior is to use powerful, open-ended questions in order to guide that conversation. So part of being a great coach is to guide conversations with your employees in a way that will help them discover new insights. So by asking powerful questions, that will help employees explore their own thoughts, identify problems, and discover their own solutions. So you want to get the conversation started with open-ended questions like, what's on your mind? What's the real challenge here for you? Or what support later on in that conversation? What supports or resources do you need? Oops, pardon me. And what do you need from me? And what do you need from me? I guess that was the last question I had on that slide. Okay, so this is a big slide, adopting coaching behaviors. Lots going on there. Mindset, trust, listening actively, and then asking powerful, open-ended questions. Okay, so the second element to a successful coach approach is around being able to recognize coachable moments. Okay, so 30 seconds again. What might be some examples of coachable moments? In other words, when do you think coaching can happen? So in chat, when do you think coaching can happen? Anytime. Yes. On the fly. You bet. Absolutely. So anytime. Coachable moments can arise anywhere, anytime throughout the day, through any conversation, such as you're catching up in a virtual coffee chat, or you're walking together to a meeting, you're waiting in line for coffee, one-on-one meetings, you're having a team meeting or an individual meeting, in real time even. A lot of times some leaders will say, hey, Marielle, I'd like to talk to you about this near the end of our coaching. And that's really, we call that like at the door coaching, because it's just something that's been niggling them, but it wasn't really part of, what they wanted to talk about. So that's in real time. And also, of course, in the planned coaching session. So coaching can happen anytime. And what do you think, what are some examples of situations when you could coach your employees? What comes to mind, or what has been your experience? What are some examples of situations when you could coach your employees? I'll give you 30 seconds for that in chat. So just some ideas. Yes, after a successful task, event, absolutely great. Yeah. Anything else? When they're struggling, after dealing with a difficult customer. Yes. Some of you may have been on in one of my Service Best program, as I'm also a facilitator for tourism. And, we talk about that, right? When they've been dealing with a difficult situation, that we need to do a little bit of debriefing. Coaching would be great then. So just some examples, those are great. So definitely when things are going well, they've achieved a milestone, they're launching a new project, program, or service, or maybe you've given them new responsibility that they're trying out. That's a perfect time. Maybe when things are not going well, right? They're facing some challenges, or they didn't get the results that they wanted or that they had hoped for. That's another one. And then even when things are in progress, right? Or there's an issue that needs to be solved, or they themselves are asking questions of you. So you turn that into a coaching conversation. So coaching in the moment, know that you can coach at any time. And then another coachable moment is you need to look at, well, what is the depth of coaching that is required here? Do you have the time? Does this conversation, will it require more than 5 minutes? Or is it a quick? So how much time you have for a coaching conversation? If you're in a rush, you plan, schedule a meeting. You have to also think about complexity. How complicated is what the issue that they're talking about? Also, the environment. Are you in an appropriate location to have a private and confidential conversation so that both of you feel comfortable? How serious is the issue that they want to talk about? Are there organization or personal implications that exist? And then finally is a relationship. How comfortable are your employees with you? Have you built that trust or a trusting relationship yet? Okay, so recognizing coachable moments. And then the third element of a successful coach approach is very much around adapting the coaching for each individual and situation. Okay, so remember that coaching is coachee-led conversation. You're not directing, you're asking questions based on what they are saying. So this is really around being aware of your biases and or preconceptions that you may have of your employees. So you need to be aware of those, you need to reflect and take action on mitigating the impact that they're having on how you coach to prevent those biases and preconceptions from stifling your ability to adapt as you're learning more about your coaches. So what might be some example of biases that might get in the way of a successful coaching conversation? 30 seconds in chat. What might be some examples of biases? Any thoughts on that? Okay. So let me share a few of them. Oh, I see. Yeah, thank you in the chat. We always prefer things to be done the way we do them. Oh, sure, that could be. Yeah, exactly. In fact, I just had a conversation last week with somebody who's got gung ho. She works in the finance field, and she has all these great ideas. But I can feel her frustration with her manager going, "Oh, nope, nope, nope. Now we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that yet." So they're pushing back. They're resisting her. So oh, what I would love to have a coaching conversation with the manager at that point. But for sure, that's a really good one. So one is a cultural background, right? That might be a bias. So for that, let me just see here. Where am I here? Yeah, so that might be something that a manager needs to think about. And just recognize and set aside that preconception related to cultural backgrounds, right? So rather than you need to approach coaching with an open mind and aiming to understand that's an individual. They have unique strengths. They have different unique communication style and work preferences. So that might just involve learning about that particular culture in order to ensure that you offer fair and unbiased coaching. Another bias could be somebody coming in from a non-traditional work background, right? Maybe somebody unconsciously favors employees with a traditional corporate backgrounds, right? Maybe even conventional career paths. So again, you need to appreciate that there are diverse experiences and skills that non-traditional backgrounds bring. Maybe somebody coming in from, I don't know, the arts into one of your organizations, right? Very, very different than tourism, but they would certainly bring a lot of really neat perspectives. Another bias would be past performance issues, right? Maybe there's assumption there that the employee will continue to underperform. So managers then need to focus on the present, try to get an understanding of the reasons behind previous performance issues, and to work with the employee to set achievable goals and strategies for improvement. It could have been a lack of confidence, or maybe not trusting themselves. Okay, so there's lots of reasons why somebody may not be performing well. Another bias as well is a gender or age group, right? So again, being mindful of this bias and to treat each employee as an individual, avoid making assumptions about their capabilities, and instead focus on individual skills, achievements, and their goals, because this will ensure fair and equal opportunities for growth and development. And then the last bias, and again, there could have been a lot more, but these are the 5 that came up for me, was communication styles. And again, some managers may prefer or be more comfortable with a specific communication style, but it's important to know that others may not be, right? We each have our own communication style. We prefer one over the other. So managers need to be flexible and adjust their communication approach to match employees' preferences as well. Because this will promote effective communication and better understanding between the coach and the employee. So this is all just to think about what might be some biases or some assumptions you have in order that you can provide fair, effective guidance to each individual. Okay, so just something to consider there. And then finally, the 4th element of a successful coach approach really is around having, at the end of that conversation, what's the plan for action, right? It's important that the coachee or the employee leaves with at least 1 or 2 actions that they can do in order to move their goal forward and to achieve that goal. So this is as a manager, using coaching, the manager supports the employee to help them decide what are they going to do next, and when are they going to do that so they can make progress toward achieving their goals. So what are some key planning behaviors for this? Well, again, the action is going to vary depending on the situation and also what the goal is, right? But the coachee could suggest maybe a behavior that they want to practice. Maybe there's an assignment they want to complete, an email they need to send out, or a follow-up meeting with you. Those are just 4 small things that they can do. But what's important for you to consider as a manager is that no matter what the actions are, remember that you and your employee should be on the same page about what is the goal, what's the problem, and what's the solution that's been identified before they develop that action plan. And continue to ask questions to support them to get into that action plan frame of mind. And possible questions there are, what do they need to do to be successful? Or what do they need to execute the solution they've identified? And then ask, so what actions are you going to take? And by when are you going to take that action? Okay, that's what I do with my leadership coaching is, okay, what do you need to do? And when are you going to start taking that action? And make sure you're clear. Make sure you're both clear on what they will do and what you will do to help them. What supports and resources do they need from you that they can be successful? And then it's very helpful as well that the employee documents what actions that they are going to take, even just taking some really short notes. And it can be a quick email to you that they summarize the most important information, because then you both have that information, because then you say, okay, you said you would do this. How's that going? You could, follow through in your next conversation. Okay. I had some examples of that, but I'm just looking at the time here and we're quickly running out of time. So as promised, I just want to show you a coaching framework, and there are many different coaching frameworks. And so before I go there, I just wanted to say that those were the 4 elements to a successful coach approach. So lots there to consider around adopting coaching behaviors, recognizing coaching moments, adapting your coaching for each employee and the situation, and then getting down to action. So as I mentioned, there are many different coaching frameworks which provide structured approaches for managers to guide the coaching conversations in order to promote self-awareness and to empower your team members to achieve their goals. Okay. So the most common, due to the fact that it's relatively simple, is the GROW model. Many of you may have already heard of this GROW model. But essentially, this framework provides managers with a structure for coaching conversations. And the GROW, it's an acronym, and it stands for, the G stands for goals. So here's where you need to define clear, specific objectives and goals to be achieved. And the R is reality, is that where are you now? Okay, what's the current situation? And you need to help the employee understand the current challenges and maybe the resources that are available. The O stands for options. Is this what could we do? What are some potential solutions here to this issue? So this is where you're exploring potential strategies, actions, or maybe even obstacles that could get in the way. And then finally, the W stands for way forward, or the will, the commitment. So here's where you're checking for commitment and to establish that clear action plan. Okay, so again, this is just one coaching framework. I'd be interested to see if any of you on the call here actually use GROW. If you can just put that yes, no, thumbs up or thumbs down in chat, that would be great. And then, so ladies and gentlemen, as time it has just flown by here, so I just want to wrap up here by saying I have given you a lot of information here around coaching. And what we looked at what coaching is, what it isn't. We looked at the benefits of building that a coaching culture, and there's so much that goes into building that coaching culture, way more than what I talked about here. And then we looked at at least 4 elements for a successful coach approach around behaviors, coachable moments, adapting the coaching, and then also action planning as well. So very, very quickly, I would love to find out what has been your biggest takeaway here. So we have a couple minutes. If you can give me give you a minute or 30 seconds, what comes up for you, biggest takeaway, and then we'll have a few minutes to answer some questions that you may have. So what might be your biggest takeaway? You can put that in the chat, and then some Q&As. So if you can share your takeaways in the chat, that would be awesome. So we have awareness of biases. I must be the kinder and gentler. Coaching's a process that requires commitment from both parties. Yeah, I didn't say this, but it's not a one and done. It's not on a checklist. Okay, good. I coached Mary today. It's because it's ongoing. Reminder that the person being coached really steers a session and outcome, and somebody's got to run. Awesome.